And we are live. Alright, everyone, welcome back to my channel, Baseball Talk with Nick Morgan. Today, I'm coming at you guys with episode 4 of our player comparison series, Who is Better New York Baseball Edition. We have Luke Voit and Pete Alonso as we compare the best first baseman in New York heading into the 2021 regular season. Now, this is going to be another fun discussion. The last episode we did, Gary Sanchez, James McCann, that was definitely very interesting to dive into. Looking at the numbers, they are a bit similar in a lot of different cases. Obviously, defensively, James McCann is a little bit better behind the plate, but Gary Sanchez, James McCann, that was our last episode of player comparison. We kicked this all off with starting pitching, comparing Garrett Cole, Jacob deGrom, and then episode 2 consisted of some bullpen guys. We looked at Aroldis Chapman and Edwin Diaz. So today, again, it's Luke Voit, Pete Alonso comparing first baseman in New York, looking to see who is the best heading into the 2021 regular season, which, by the way, is right around the corner, less than 20 days until opening day. That's exciting and a lot to look forward to for baseball fans because we have a full 162 game schedule this year, which we, of course, did not have in 2020 because of COVID. If we go ahead and premise our players here, we have position players today. Again, first basemen Luke Voit and Pete Alonso. Now, Luke Voit is 30 years old. He was a 22nd round draft pick, selected 665th overall in the 2013 draft by the St. Louis Cardinals. Now, he debuted with this organization back on June 25th of 2017. Voit came over to the New York Yankees midway through the 2018 season, so this will be his third full year. If you do count 2020 as a complete season, which it is and it isn't at the same time because there's only a 60-game schedule, but 1920, this will be 21, so his third full season with the organization. Now, his counterpart, Pete Alonso of the New York Mets, he was selected a little earlier in his draft, second round, 64th overall back in 2016 by the New York Mets. He debuted with this organization on March 28th, 2019, the start of a stellar rookie campaign, of course, winning that home run derby and now Rookie of the Year, breaking the single-season home run record by a rookie. Alonso has quite the name established so far in his very short Major League Baseball career, but he's looking to bounce back because him, as well as some other big-name superstars in 2020, did find some difficulties, especially at the plate, because if you got off to a slow start, it wasn't easy to pick things back up and get things going in a 60-game schedule. So Pete Alonso looking to bounce back. Of course, Luke Voit needs no bounce back whatsoever. 20-plus home runs in the 2020 season. He was the home run leader, and going into 2021, he looks to be one of the biggest sluggers on a very talented New York Yankees team. Aaron Judge, Aaron Hicks, of course, Giancarlo Stanton, Gleyber Torres, Gary Sanchez, if they're all healthy. DJ LeMahieu can hit home runs. This team looks to be very solid, but in all honesty, both New York franchises do. So without further ado, let's go ahead actually start comparing the numbers here. Now, if you guys have seen the previous episodes, you are familiar with how we lay this out here. We're going to go ahead and dive into the stats. Usually, we kick things off with the 2017 to 2019, except Pete Alonso wasn't in the league before the 2019 season. So we're singling out that 2019 year. Then we'll look at 2020 individually, followed up by the 2021 projections by Baseball Reference. Here we go, guys. Welcome to everyone in the chat and in the stream currently. Thank you all for joining. Luke Voit, Pete Alonso, who is better going into 2021? That is the question here. Taking a look at the numbers in 2019, now this is Luke Voit's first full season with the franchise, and that's, of course, the New York Yankees. He played in 118 games with 429 at-bats, 113 hits, hitting .263. Now, there's 4 categories we just rattled off right there. He's only going to lead in batting average. Of course, Pete Alonso went off, missed only 1 game the entire season, had 597 at-bats, 155 hits, and a .260 average. Now, of course, more games played by quite a significant amount. Because you're getting more games, you're obviously going to get more at-bats too. Well, when you have this many games separating, you're going to have more at-bats. So there are more opportunities for hits. Alonso leads in the games played, at-bats, and hits categories. Luke Voit does take home batting average, though. We move on to runs and extra base hits. Now, Pete Alonso, it's very lopsided, and you can tell with the italics and the underlines on your screen right now for the graphics, obviously. If a stat is italicized and underlined, that means that particular player led out of the two. It's very lopsided here in 2019. Let's be honest. Pete Alonso leads in every category but 3. He's going to lead in runs with 103, 30 doubles, 2 triples, 53 home runs, and 120 runs batted in. I mean, he set a single season rookie home run record with 53 home runs in 2019, won the home run derby. He was insane. He absolutely crushed it. Luke Voit, on the other hand, in those same categories, 72 runs, 21 doubles, 1 triple, 21 homers, and 62 runs batted in. Not terrible numbers here, but it's not going to compare to Pete Alonso of the New York Mets. Stolen bases. Now, there are a couple categories I've thrown in here, and they're not necessarily beneficial to saying which player is better. Like if you look at triples and stolen bases, you're not going to single out any of these particular stats and say, okay, well, Pete Alonso had more triples, he's the better player on that own statistic, right? But you do look at like stolen bases and everything. 0 stolen bases for Luke Voit. 1 for Pete Alonso. Again, doesn't make a huge difference here, but I did think that would be kind of fun to throw in. If you guys want to learn about these players a little bit more, take a look at their stats. It was 1 stolen base for Pete Alonso in his rookie campaign. Now, it came down to a 1 walk difference. 71 for Luke Voit, 72 for Pete Alonso, and because of that extra walk, he is going to go ahead and take yet another category. Now, Luke Voit gets back in the win column here. 2 stats in a row, and then that's going to be it for him. 142 strikeouts compared to 183 for Pete Alonso. Of course, less is more. If you're a hitter, you don't want to be striking out as much. So 142 strikeouts and less games, less at-bats. Luke Voit takes that one. And on-base percentage, a 378 on base. He had almost similar walks and a lot less at-bats and just over 40 hits less. So, I mean, the on-base percentage does go to Luke Voit here. It sat at 378. For Pete Alonso, it was 358 back in the 2019 year. We look at the slugging percentage. Pete Alonso takes it 583 to 464. OPS, 941 to 842. Again, it's going to go to the New York Mets first baseman. And finally, OPS plus. Now, if you guys are unfamiliar with the OPS plus statistic, it essentially measures the league average in OPS. And if you're higher than 100, you are that percent better than the rest of the league. So Pete Alonso had a 147 OPS plus, meaning he was 47% better than the rest of the league in that OPS category. Luke Voit was above average with a 123 OPS, but he was not better than Pete Alonso, who again 147. Now, if we look at awards won in this season, of course, Pete Alonso was elected to the All-Star team. He was the Rookie of the Year, and he also won the Home Run Derby. Luke Voit did not get any sort of recognition for his outstanding performance because, to be honest, it was pretty much an average season for a first baseman. Pete Alonso, easily the best first baseman in 2019 alone, but don't worry, Yankees fans, kind of like myself here, and Luke Voit, he will get back into the swing of things with 2020. So with that being said, let's go ahead, take a look at that 2020 chart that we made up here, comparing the stats for both New York first basemen, and a little bit of a different storyline. If we recall the 2019 graphics, Pete Alonso took the majority of the categories, but for Luke Voit now here in 2020, it's a different narrative, different storyline. Like I just mentioned, he's going to go ahead and lead in pretty much every single category with a few exceptions here, and the first of which is games played. Now, it's a 1-game difference. Remember, a 60-game season. It started late July, ended its normal time, so 60 games in the regular season. Luke Voit played in 56, Pete Alonso played in 57 of them. Now, Voit did have 1 less game, but 5 more at-bats, 213 compared to 208, and 11 more hits, 59 to 48 for the Yankees and Mets first basemen, respectively. The average, of course, just a little more at-bats and a ton more hits for Luke Voit is going to be a bit higher for the New York Yankees first baseman. It was 277 for Voit. Pete Alonso hit 231 in his sophomore season. Runs scored, it is a 10-run differential right here. Luke Voit scored 41 times, Pete Alonso 31 times. I mean, This is essentially a useless statistic when comparing players, yet again, kind of like triples and stolen bases and all of that, because they can't really control if they score. They have to, of course, get on base first, so they have to have hits, but they also have to get on in good opportunities. Like if they're getting on with 2 outs in the bottom of the order coming up, or guys who are in a slump, good chance they're not going to score every at bat or every time they get on base. So 41 runs, 31 runs. Not necessarily a huge category, but nonetheless, it does go to Luke Voit. Now, it's a 1 double difference as well. Luke Voit had 5, Pete Alonso had 6 in the abbreviated regular season that took place last year, and they tied with triples at 0. Again, like stolen bases, we already talked about it. Stolen bases, triples, runs, even doubles really for a first baseman isn't a big deal, but nonetheless, we want to throw them in here for you guys so you could still have them, and we can discuss them a little bit here and there. Home run wise, of course, Pete Alonso was the home run king in 2019. 2020, he did find himself in a little bit of a slump, but nonetheless, he still managed to hit 16 home runs in 57 games, which is not a bad mark whatsoever. Except for the fact that Luke Voit came away with 22. He led all of Major League Baseball in home runs last year. He was the home run leader, the king, whatever you want to call it. It does go to Luke Voit. He does get the recognition in this category. More home runs. He also had more runs batted in with 52 as compared to Pete Alonso's 35 RBIs. Stolen bases, 0 for Voit, 1 for Alonso, and then walks. This walks obviously does help the on-base percentage category, but other than that, it's similar to triples, doubles, stolen bases, runs, whereas walks do not make or break how good a player is. You're not going to be able to say Luke Voit is better because he had more walks, or Pete Alonso is better because he had more walks. In this case, 17 for Voit, 24 for Alonso, and that's going to be the last stat win that Alonso gets here in the 2020 season, as Luke Voit takes away strikeouts, on-base percentage, slugging, OPS, OPS plus, and WAR, which we're going to get into. 7 less strikeouts for Luke Voit last season, an on-base percentage of 338 compared to 326 for the Mets slugger, 610 slugging for Luke Voit, 490 for Pete Alonso, 948 OPS for Luke Voit. You look at the on-base, which was pretty good, but then the slugging was much better. OPS was near 1.000 for Voit, and then for Pete Alonso, 817. OPS plus, we do take a look at again, and in this case, Luke Voit was only 23% better than the league in 2019 when it came to OPS. This year, he bumped it up to 156, so 56% better than the remaining batters in Major League Baseball. And Pete Alonso actually had a 123 OPS, just like Luke Voit did in the 2019 season. So Voit comes away with the OPS plus categorical win yet again. Now, we look at WAR and wins above replacement. If you guys aren't familiar, a lot of fans who really dive into the statistics and try to do a similar thing that I'm doing here, comparing players, especially when it comes to like Mike Trout, Mookie Betts, Fernando Tatis Jr., the big names, guys who have a lot to prove but don't at the same time because they are practically faces of the game. You look at WAR, how good really are they? Well, WAR means wins above replacement. So the higher the WAR, the better you are, the more you help out your individual and respective ball club. Luke Voit had a 1.7 WAR in 2020, which is better than Pete Alonso's 0.3. But this is a very controversial category here. WAR is something that some fans live by. They live and breathe by WAR, and others do not see the hype around it. It depends on what you guys value. If you think this is an important category, well, go ahead and say Luke Voit takes it away, because he does 1.4 better than Pete Alonso. But I'm kind of on the fence about it. I don't care either way. I'm not going to look at WAR by itself and be like, oh, well, this player X had a 6 WAR and player Y had a player 2 WAR, so player X is better. No, I don't really care. That's not something that I'm all for, but I do like to look at the numbers, just see what is a player's WAR throughout their career, a single season, what have you. In this case, WAR is better for Luke Voit. He was a more substantial piece for the Yankees than Pete Alonso was for the New York Mets. Unlike 2019, Luke Voit runs away with a lot of the categories here, proving to be the better first baseman in last season. So if we kind of recall here, Pete Alonso was better in 2019. Luke Voit comes in. The calendar turns to 2020. He's a better first baseman in New York. But this series, yeah, it's fun to compare players in the past, but we are looking to see who's the best first baseman going into 2021 in New York. So who is set to have the best season this upcoming year out of these two guys? And that's what we're going to go ahead and talk about right here. Changing gears now to 2021 projections by Baseball Reference. I'm going to go ahead and change it up on screen for you all. We have our 2021 projections by Baseball Reference. Now, if you guys are unfamiliar with Baseball Reference, it is a great site to go to if you want to dive into stats. Major League Baseball, MLB.com is also fun, but Baseball Reference has everything. It's got definitions, what categories and stats mean. Really anything you want to look at is going to be there on Baseball Reference. And something really cool that they do every season is as they prep for the year to begin, they project what a player's numbers are going to be at the end of the season based off of career averages and trends from the past few seasons. And the first number here is actually very important on screen. Percent reliability at the top of the graphic right here. Baseball Reference, of course, they can't be perfect. They don't know for sure that Luke Voit's going to have 494 at-bats and hit 263 in 2021. So they are 75% confident. Their reliability rate is 75% that they go ahead and have these numbers fairly close to the finalized stat line for Luke Voit this year. The higher percent reliability from Baseball Reference, the better. That means the closer they believe they are to what's actually going to happen. Luke Voit is projected to be 75% accurate. Pete Alonso's projections, 77% accurate. So these, of course, are generated numbers. There's some sort of algorithm that creates these and publishes them to baseballreference.com. We do not know if either of these are going to be remotely close, no matter how close they are to being reliable at that 100% rate. But we can kind of say, well, if these are pretty much accurate, who is better going into 2021 based off of the Baseball Reference projections? And that's what we're going to go ahead and determine based off of the numbers that we do have in front of us before the season starts, who is going to be better, Luke Voit or Pete Alonso here in 2021. So I'm going to go ahead, pull up their Baseball Reference pages so we can compare their projection numbers to their career averages, so on and so forth. Luke Voit, the New York Yankees starting first baseman for 2021, is projected to have 494 at-bats, in which he acquires 130 hits, tallying a 263 batting average. We take a look at his career numbers here. He's a career 274 hitter, so they are projecting his average to be just a little lower than it has been his 4 years at the Major League Baseball level. 130 hits and 494 at-bats. Well, the closest season we have to that is 2019. That's the only year he's had more than 300 at-bats in a single season, in which 2019's case, he had, 429 at-bats. 429 at-bats for Luke Voit in 2019. He had 113 hits. So to say he has 494 at-bats, 130 hits, that's pretty fair. And in that season, he had 263. They're projecting him to have a 263 average in 2021. I think that's a really good projection right there that is very accurate, very possible. I would love as a Yankees fan for that number to be a little bit higher, or for those numbers to be a little bit higher for Luke Voit. But if he can get 494 at-bats in, say that's 120-ish games, probably a little bit more than, I'd say like 130, off the top of my head, not really doing math here. But if he could play 130 games, hit 263, I'll take that as a Yankees fan any day of the week. Now, for Pete Alonso, he's projected at a 77% reliability rate to have 128 hits, so less hits in 513 at-bats. So that's 19 more at-bats than Luke Voit. More at-bats, less hits. He's going to have a lower average, set at 250. Now, we look at his 2019 and his 2020 seasons. His career batting average is 252. Okay, so a 252 batting average right here. Projected to have a 250 average at the end of 2021. That's fair. That's fair. I think that is going to be, decent numbers right there. Again, kind of similar to Luke Voit. If you're a Mets fan, you would love for him to have better average, better hits. At bats you can't really judge. Of course, that means more at bats the healthier you are. But anyone likes average to be up a little bit. We look at the first four categories here: at bats, hits, averages, or average, and runs, which we haven't talked on yet. But Luke Voit is going to lead the majority going into 2021. Luke Voit, 494 at bats, is the only loss he has when it comes to these stats. Pete Alonso has 513, but Voit is slated to have more hits, about a higher average, and more runs scored. Talking about runs right here, Luke Voit, 85 runs to Pete Alonso's 84. This is another category where it is very hard to go ahead and take a look at and compare. It's a one run difference, but either way, it's not like runs is going to determine who's best by itself. So Luke Voit taking a lot of the categories early on here, but Pete Alonso, he's still in the running. He's still in the mix. We look at extra base hits now, and this is where he is set to have a really great season. 23 doubles, 1 triple, and 39 home runs. He's an extra base hit machine. We're going to get down to his on-base slugging, his OPS, in just a little bit, but he's going to lead in all of those extra base hit categories, except triples. Both Luke Voit and Pete Alonso are expected to have 1 triple over the course of this upcoming year. On the flip side of things, for the New York Yankees starting first baseman, 20 doubles, 1 triple, 33 home runs, 88 RBIs. Still very good numbers, but 6 less home runs, 5 less RBIs, 3 less doubles. If you're looking at power, who's the more powerful first baseman? Strictly based on numbers, like these numbers right here, not exit velo, not hard hit rate, not barrel rate. But if you're looking at these particular stats, who is better power-wise? Pete Alonso is your guy going into 2021. Projected. He's supposed to have the better season when it comes to power at the plate. Stolen bases, another category, doesn't really mean much here, but for the sake of just it being a stat and me wanting to include it, Luke Voit, 2 stolen bases, Pete Alonso, 3. Moving on to walks, similar to stolen bases, does not matter much. We saw a 1-run difference between the two first basemen, a 1 stolen base difference, and here it's a 1 walk difference, which I believe we actually saw earlier. Going back to, I believe it was it 2019? Yeah, 2019, Voit had 71 walks, Alonso had 72. Now looking at 2021, they're projected to have 63 walks and 62 walks respectively, so a little less than their last full season, but walks only really helps on base percentage and getting guys on to score runs and hopefully win ball games for your franchise. So Voit, yeah, he's going to walk away with the walks category. No pun intended right there. He's also going to lead in strikeouts. 147 strikeouts, 5 less than Pete Alonso. Again, less is more in this particular case. You do not want to be striking out much unless you're trying to set a strikeout record in a single season as a hitter. But I don't think anyone is setting that goal any given season. We then look at the on-base percentage, slugging, and OPS. Well, for Luke Voit, he is set to have a 354 on-base percentage here in 2021 compared to Pete Alonso's 347. Luke Voit will take the category, he will win it, and that is his last categorical and statistical win in 2021. Then you have slugging, 508 to 526. It is very similar, but Pete Alonso edges out Luke Voit to take home this win. And OPS-wise, it comes down to .01. 863 on base plus slugging for the Yankees first baseman. The Mets first baseman is going to end the year 873 if this 77% reliability projection from Baseball Reference is somewhat close. A lot to unpack here. I've thrown a lot of numbers at you guys from 2019 to 2020, but looking at the 2021 season, which is what I am valuing most for the sake of this series and trying to figure out who the better first baseman is. In 2019, we saw it. It was demonstrated. It was illustrated by the numbers. Pete Alonso was the better first baseman. In 2020, the tides changed a little bit, and Luke Voit became the better and the best first baseman in New York, primarily, of course, primary and the regular starting first basemen for both teams. In 2021, it's set to be a little bit different. This is a more even playing ground here. You have to remember that 2021 is the first full season back after a really weird and abbreviated 2020 regular schedule. It was a 60-game season compared to what's usually 162. That's quite a difference, and it's going to be a bit of adjustment. Now, of course, I think pitchers are going to take more of a toll than hitters will. Because they're going to have to really get a lot more innings in and have to worry about maybe getting hurt. I mean, same, these guys can get hurt and they are at risk of injury every game, but pitchers, I think, can blow out their arm, risk Tommy John, everything. These guys don't have to worry about Tommy John, which is a good thing. Luke Voit, Pete Alonso, who is better going into 2021? Well, let's kind of take it in chunks by stats. If you're looking for guys who are going to get more appearances, Pete Alonso is projected to have more at-bats. It's not a lot. He's projected to have 20 more at-bats than Luke Voit, but that is still 20 more at-bats. So if you're kind of looking at and you're trying to compare to the last little grain here, Alonso is going to have more at-bats. With that being said, he has less hits, a lower average, and everything else looks up for Pete Alonso. Things look to be great for Alonso. And we have some more guys in the chat here. Thank you and welcome. So yeah, we're comparing Luke Voit, Pete Alonso. Who's the better first baseman going into 2021? It's been fairly even from 2019 to 2020. They both were equally as good going into 2021 now. Luke Voit was better in 2020, Pete Alonso in 2019. Now, again, if you're going to look at averages and at-bats, it's a toss-up. But if you want to look at power, Pete Alonso is projected to have more home runs, doubles, triples, which he actually ties triples in, and RBIs. So production-wise, he's helping his team out the most RBIs out of the two first basemen, projected by Baseball Reference. Doubles and triples, I don't know if you really want to count those. We get a comment here. It's actually, I think, really important to this projection. Voit has never had the year Alonso had in 2019. I do agree. I think Luke Voit had a tremendous 2020, and I love it. I'm a Yankees fan, and I root for both New York teams. I like the Yankees. I like the Mets. I follow the Yankees a little bit more. Luke Voit's best season, arguably, was last year. Okay, it was a 60-game schedule. There's nothing wrong with that, but I want to see him do it more consistently. I am a huge Luke Voit fan, and I think he's definitely capable of kind of keeping those 2020 stats and bringing them into 2021 and, climbing and building upon them. But he has to go ahead. He's going to be the starting first baseman. He has no competition at that position other than DJ LeMahieu, who's not a primary first baseman to begin with. DJ is probably going to be used more as like a, if he's going to first, it's going to be an off day for Luke Voit. Or we might even see, which can be fun, Jay Bruce or Derek Dietrich. None of those guys are going to compare to Luke Voit and the value he brings to the New York Yankees. Voigt's going to go ahead and have the opportunity for a lot of at-bats. More hits, more higher average, big potential for Voit. Alonso for MVP, here we go. It's going to be very interesting to see how this year plays out. Based on the numbers from Baseball Reference and their projections, Pete Alonso looks to be the better first baseman going into this season. Right? He's going to have more home runs, more RBIs, a higher slugging, and a higher OPS. You take that all for what it's worth, and though a lot of those categories he doesn't lead by much, he is still leading said categories. In my personal opinion, this episode right here contains the closest race out of everything else. When we saw starting pitching and we compared Garrett Cole and Jacob deGrom, it was Jacob deGrom by far as the better starting pitcher. We looked at the closers. That was also a tight race. Aroldis Chapman, Edwin Diaz, but they've both had their ups and downs over the course of the last few seasons. Offensively, Gary Sanchez should be a better catcher than James McCann. Defensively, I think James McCann goes ahead and gets that with ease. We look at Luke Voit and Pete Alonso. Now, none of them necessarily have above average defense, at least from what I'm recalling off the top of my head. And we're comparing offensive numbers to begin with. Luke Voit and Pete Alonso is a very fun conversation, and I want to hear your thoughts in the chat, in the comments if you're watching this after it's live. Who is the better first baseman in your opinion? It comes down to what you value as a fan and what you want to see out of your starter. I think the potential is there for both of these guys to have very similar seasons, right? I do think that Luke Voit and Pete Alonso can both put up great numbers, and maybe be in the running for AL and NL MVP. I don't know if they're going to win it, but it'd be really fun to see them in the talks, right? So I'm just trying to think here, for the sake of the video, I want to give you guys, okay, A or B. One of them is definitely better, but it is so close. This regular season is going to be fun to watch. The best first baseman in New York, is it Luke Voit? Is it Pete Alonso? Pete Alonso's had the best single season out of both of these guys. That was back in 2019. If that's his ceiling, if Pete Alonso can hit that again, insane, ridiculous. He's easily the best first baseman. Do I think he's going to go ahead and hit 50-plus home runs in our first year back to a 162-game schedule? No. I don't really know if anyone's going to get into that territory. So it's not bashing Pete Alonso. It's just saying I think it's going to be very hard for a single player to hit over 50 home runs this season. Nonetheless, both of these guys have extreme power. They swing the bat well, and they're going to help out their team, put up solid offensive numbers. This is definitely fun. We have a chat here in stream saying Pete Alonso, in their opinion, is better. That's very fair. Either way you go, you can easily teeter-totter with this. And you can say Luke Voit's better if you look at this category. If you look at Pete Alonso here, he's going to lead. Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, similar home runs, similar RBI totals, but what's really catching my eye here, if these rates are at anywhere close to where these guys end, you're looking at slugging, you're looking at OPS, and Pete Alonso's going to lead. That's what's really drawing me into saying Pete Alonso is the best first baseman going into 2021. These guys both have high ceilings. A 60-game season last year for Luke Voit. He played in, 56 games, hit 22 home runs. You prorate that to a 162-game season, that's north of 40 homers. Both of these guys, extremely talented, swing a great stick. They are very, very good at the plate. It's hard to compare these guys. It almost comes down to obviously for me as a Yankees fan, I really want to say Luke Voit, but Pete Alonso at the same time has done some great things in his career. Sophomore slump plus COVID-19 season was really kind of rough for a lot of people, but Pete Alonso didn't have the best numbers last year. Nonetheless, this is a fun race in 2021. Who is the best first baseman? Is it Luke Voit? Is it Pete Alonso for the New York Mets? Well, I'm going to go ahead and give you guys my final decision. Take any questions regarding these guys in the chat, then call it a day. Stay tuned for the next episode, which should be live tomorrow. We'll go ahead and talk about second basemen here and compare the starting second basemen for both New York teams. Luke Voit, Pete Alonso. My final decision, wow. I try not to have a preconceived thought going into the streams because I want to be open to it, and it's very tough to choose between Voit and Alonso. It really, really is. I'm going to say the better first baseman going into 2021. This is strictly based off of what we've seen in the recent past, and that's 2020. I think Luke Voit is the better offensive first baseman by a hair. I mean it. It could be to a T that these guys are very, very similar in what they produce at the plate. Just Luke Voit has been doing it. He's done it in 2020. He's ready to keep it going in 2021. But both of these guys are capable of so much. Their ceilings are high, and even their floors, the very bottom, is low for them. I'm sorry, the very bottom is high. These guys are going to put up easily 30 home runs each. Now, I really don't know if it's going to be Alonso or Voit. No one does. I would like to go ahead and say that it's going to be close. You could really go either way here. So I'm sorry, Luke Voit, Pete Alonso, I like them both. I love both of these guys as players. I root for both of their success. and their team successes, because I love New York baseball. It's really hard to go ahead and project. I mean, this isn't like a Mike Trout comparison to Aaron Hicks or to Brett Gardner. You know, it's not like an easy runaway. It's not even like a Jacob deGrom, Garrett Cole, because both of those two pitchers are at least top 5 in the league. These guys rank high in the first base list in all of Major League Baseball, but there is no one clear favorite. So that's going to go ahead and be it for me today. Projections, technically, with the numbers speaking, Pete Alonso is set to be the best first baseman in New York heading into 2021. Realistically, I'm not too sure. Not realistically, but just what's actually going to happen. I'm not too sure what the final answer is going to be for me here. I want to say Luke Voit. I want to say Pete Alonso. It's very, very close. But that's going to go ahead and end it. Quick question, is Aaron Judge overrated? I don't think he is. I think, yes, he does get injured quite a bit. And not even quite a bit. He's had injury stints, a few injuries, but those injuries have kept him out for quite some time, or held him back significantly. Like when he was trying to play through his rib issues in the postseason and everything, and towards the end of the year. So we're going to go ahead and we'll talk about Aaron Judge, compare him to the New York Mets starting right fielder at the very end of this series. Right field, I'm projecting right now to be the last comparison of this year. So if you guys want to go ahead and let me know who you want to see next, I'm planning on doing second basemans tomorrow. So we'll compare DJ LeMahieu and Jeff McNeil. I think that would be a lot of fun. But guys, I'm going to go ahead and call it a day on stream. Thank you all so much to everyone who joined Luke Voit versus Pete Alonso player comparison. Looking at the numbers, who's supposed to be the better first baseman in 2021? Pete Alonso. Who's it actually going to be? It's a toss-up. Your guess is as good as mine. Roll the dice. These guys are both capable of so much. High ceilings, high bottoms as well. It's going to be a lot of fun. Thank you all to everyone in the chat. Great stream. I'll make sure to tune into the next one. Thank you so much, guys. I appreciate you all taking the time to join me live today as we discuss player comparisons. Luke Voit, Pete Alonso, who is better going into 2021. Make sure you guys have your notifications turned on for the channel so you are aware the next time I stream, the next episode of the series that goes live. And that's what I just regularly upload. You guys can get the notifications as well, and you don't miss a single video. Subscribe if you haven't already. That's going to end it for this one for me, guys. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you all next time. Peace.